Magic is a funny thing, is it not? We all know what it is. You see a sorcerer twirl his fingers and make a portal, and you just know that's magic. But can you define it? While one would argue you are just altering the world with supernatural power, that sort of fails to grasp the power and feel of magic, right? I mean, many creatures and monstrosities should not exist by the laws of nature alone, and yet, would you call them magical? Well, they are by definition, but they don't feel magical, do they? My point is that magic doesn't really follow the rules. If anything, it breaks them and has its own in its place. And while dragons follow the rules of the natural world, despite technically being magical, many undead don't. And today, I really wish to speak of one that might not even be an undead at all. In fact, most experts in this field can't agree on what it is exactly, some saying it's undead, others saying fey, or even an aberration, and sometimes both or all of them and none of them. But today, I think there's something else entirely. I wish to speak of the Will-O-Wisp, and what I think they are, since I don't believe they are one creature at all, but something many can become, a sort of state of being rather than a classification of creature. But the reason I speak of it now is because the most clear and obvious way to make them is via the undeath method. At least if my theories are correct, that is. But with that in mind, there is a species of Fae that has also achieved the same state of being, and possibly via its magical nature. But let me now get into my theory on what a Will-O-Wisp actually is. For in short, I believe they are pure energy in living form, not magic. Energy. When you start to view them through this lens, their curious quirks really make a lot of sense. Where they can be found and for what reasons they stay in the same places is a good example of this. They are often found within two places with one exception, that of the swamps and the bogs and the like, but the notable exception is that of graveyards. They often appear in graveyards and it is linked to how they feed, which is actually what makes them scary, and I would say intentionally evil. See, Will-O-Wisps feed off of emotion in its raw and clear form directly from a person, converting it into raw power and energy. This can actually change the colour of the wisp too, if they feed off of just one emotion enough, but they will always try to feed off of the same one over and over again, for a very clear reason. That emotion is fear. And it's for the simplest reason that it's not only the strongest emotion we feel, but also the easiest to elicit with the littlest amount of effort. See, people are not exaggerating when they say things like, they feed off of your fear when they speak of the Will-O-Wisp, because they actually do, quite literally in fact. Now, this would make them quite evil, and while you could argue it's more of an animalistic thing than a malicious one, you would be misinformed, because they are clearly not only intelligent enough to understand such concepts, but also know how to act on this knowledge. You see, wisps are more than smart enough to be symbiotic with other creatures, commonly working alongside hags, onis, and even black dragons. They know to follow them around, and to even lure people towards them and their traps, in order to let them deal with them so that they can feed on their emotion. Which also kills them. I should have just said that they know that this can kill them, and some of them are smart enough to not do that. There are, however, other wisps that don't use these sorts of horrible tactics, and feed off of other emotions as I said before, often changing to reflect this, although I find the exact colours they take are quite inconsistent. Some will go from a yellow to a purple, or perhaps a blue even though it's the same emotion. It's also uncommon for this to happen, since it's much harder for them to actually get to any other emotion, and it sustains them a lot less for doing so. So when this does happen, it's because another being has sort of made them do it. They've tamed them, so to speak? But why I bring this up is because the different groups of wisps have actually been known to fight each other. In fact, the various origins of wisps have also been known to fight each other as well, often destroying each other over vast areas of swamplands, a sight that is bewildering to people who don't actually know anything about these beings. Although, to be fair, there is a lot of confusion around them, and perhaps even I have already stated something that is wrong. Misinformation about them is that common. But I should actually speak of their origins, since I've sort of skirted around the topic till now, and as I've said before, their origins and classifications are a bit muddy, to put it lightly. It really is a debate on what they should class as, and I really don't know which one is true, despite the fact I'm talking about them now as if they were undead. So I'm going to basically go over all of the theories on what they are exactly. Starting with the undead one. When an evil soul dies in anguish and misery in a land naturally seeped in magic with no way of it naturally seeping out, there is a chance that they will become a Will-O-Wisp. If this is the origin, they are almost certainly going to be more aggressive and spiteful, driven by hatred and enjoying the fact it is fear they indulge in. But the other origin is that of the Fae. This relates to a different creature entirely, that sort of became the Will-O-Wisps, that of the Boggart. This was a shape-shifting humanoid that upon reaching full maturity became a Will-O-Wisp in a metamorphosis. However, due to the fact that Boggarts have not been officially reported in a very long time, it seems that all of them have become wisps at this point. How exactly this happened and how they sort of skipped this early stage in their life is completely a mystery. But this is not really a problem for them, however, for regardless of the origin of the wisp, both of them are capable of reproduction, akin to something like mitosis. When a single wisp takes in enough energy and power, it will grow and grow, sometimes sprouting another ball or node within themselves. And when they have enough of this, they can split off and make a new Will-O-Wisp entirely. The new ones do act independently, but it's quite common for them to not only stay close together, but also act in unison. With that in mind, I think you can see how if wisps appear in one place, they will rather quickly become an infestation, especially if it's a place where things die quite commonly, such as a swamp, bog, or graveyard, which is pretty much exclusively why they're found there. It's also why you should always be wary of distant lights in the fog, regardless of how many there are and what shape they take up, for that may not be your saving civilization, but a quick shock to the grave. Oh, another very important thing to note about their nature, they are technically capable of becoming invisible. Remember how I stated that their colours can change, and while that is out of their control, how bright they are is not, and there really isn't a limit on how little light they can show, meaning that they can actually show no light at all, making them impossible to see. But here's the cool part. This is not a spell. It's not a magical effect at all, just a natural one. This means that if you have a spell that allows you to see magically induced invisibility, it would not work on a Will-O-Wisp. They would remain invisible to you. However, they would still need to be somewhat visible in order to attack you or do anything else that requires serious concentration, so they would pretty much only use this if they were planning on getting away from you. But that's still exceptionally useful, especially when you consider the fact they are very fast. Faster than any normal person can run, anyway. How about I get into what they are actually capable of, for it's a surprising amount for such a mundane-seeming creature. For a start, something that surprises many, they are still capable of speech, in a weak way that's not really understandable. They can whisper in a faint, weakened, childlike voice. It is almost impossible to make out what they are saying unless you are alone with them in a quiet situation. And this probably adds to the fear, if anything. If I hear nothing but a childlike, weak voice coming from the fog in a place I can't see, it's going to put me on ease, I'll be honest with you. The wisp is also capable of electrocuting you, unleashing a surprising amount of lightning to those within an arm's length. This is often the main thing they do if they need to attack something, but remember, this is not their preferred method of feeding. If they are fighting something, it is often because they have no choice. Remember that they can edit their light at will, making themselves brighter or invisible, so if conflict does arise and they are being targeted, they are far more likely to just flee at vast speeds and follow something else that will kill them. They're just as likely to hide and wait till a fight is over for their next ability. See, it's quite common for one to be knocked down in a fight, but not killed outright. Being knocked unconscious only to be helped later is a very common experience for many adventurers. But this is why many truly fear the Will-O-Wisp. For they wait until something else knocks you down and consume your life, killing them in that instant and feeding from them. Not only will this sustain them for quite some time, but this can actually heal them if they are at all damaged. This is made especially scary when you learn that, like many undead, the wisp is capable of moving through objects, for it is technically incorporeal. And like other incorporeal things, they have to keep moving through the object, as staying still within it will hurt them as well. But with all these facts in mind, I hope you see now why the wisp is seen as scary, despite its seemingly weak nature and ease to destroy. It is its tactical thought that makes it quite the threat. My tale of the Will-O-Wisp is not actually mine, but the memories I recovered from the corpses of a party of adventurers I found. See, a party I was with at the time was hunting down a hag, and this hag commonly used wisps to dispose of their foes faster, and lure them into traps and that sort of thing. But what I think the worst part is how this really worked. It worked shockingly well. The amount of adventurers who just followed the shiny light, only to die a few moments later, is depressingly high. These adventurers were a party of 6, and I watched all of their memories one after the other as we found their corpses scattered throughout the bog as we headed to the lair of the hag. One fell into a spiked pit following a wisp, another a pit of snakes, which is so much horribly worse, and the third one got really unlucky, for they merely touched a poisonous frog, and the wisps managed to get them before their party even noticed, since they were at the back and just quietly dropped into the bog. The party was then attacked by a frog-hemoth, which is a giant frog-like tentacled monster. One of them went down during the attack and was also consumed by the wisps, and since that was the last healer of the party, the remaining 2 decided to start fleeing, and that is when the wisps themselves attacked and not only managed to kill the 2 remaining party members, but this resulted in the wisps' numbers actually growing since they had consumed enough energy. In the end, the first party sent in to destroy the hag was killed before they could even find a sign of her, and, by accident, made the fight much harder for me and my party. We won in the end, of course, but now one of my party members keeps a wisp in a jar now because it's cute, as they see it. Which, I mean, as a ball of light, how is that in any way cute? Oh, forget it. Thinking about this would only annoy me. The Will-O-Wisps are quite a fundamental creature, I feel. Their presence has almost cemented itself in the atmosphere of many of the lands. I cannot imagine a swamp or a bog without the faint glow of a Will-O-Wisp, despite its macabre nature. And while it is still unknown and mysterious in many regards, I still find them fascinating, and hope to get to the very bottom of their existence someday. Thank you for listening to my tales. I'm the Ashspawn. Feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe, it would really mean a lot to me. But, till next with me, fellow traveller, have a good day.